Are you looking for a suitable archery gift, or just want to restock for a new season? Bowen Archery is one of Ireland's leading suppliers of archery equipment. You will find all you need at their online store: bows, strings, quivers, arrows, archery wear and accessories, tools, publications, outdoor and camping equipment, plus much, much more. Check out their website bowenarchery.com or drop them an email, bowenarchery@hotmail.com, or just call 08764655632 for all your archery needs.
Well, friends, it's Marcin Malik with a new episode of the Winning Paths podcast. Listen about ghostly archers, literature bordering on horror, myth and folklore, war trauma, aliens and the supernatural forces shaping our destiny. And all that is missing is Dracula and Frankenstein's monster, flying on a Pegasus crossed with a unicorn, the seven dwarves and Sleeping Beauty, lost in the Marvel universe. But about that maybe next time. Our Winning Paths podcast is a great resource for archery enthusiasts. It is recorded fortnightly, and new episodes are published every following Sunday. The podcast features a mix of monologues and interviews, covering a wide range of archery topics. If you have any suggestions for content or would like to share your knowledge, sporting achievements or ideas for the future, please get in touch with us at tfam.news. We are always looking for ways to improve the podcast and provide more value to our listeners. So stay tuned and keep listening to Winning Paths. And now, without further ado, to the point. Can you remember? In podcast number 6, I made a short reference to a very peculiar writer and essayist, Arthur Machen, mentioning the stir caused by his article The Bowman, which I found so interesting that I resolved to make a separate episode about it. I remember when I was a teenager, I happened to come across one of his books, quite by accident. It was a time when I was reading the likes of Robert E. Howard or H.P. Lovecraft. Then the father of one of my friends, seeing me with Lovecraft's book, asked me if I had read something by Machen. I casually replied that I had not, and then forgot about the topic. About 3 weeks later, being in an antiquarian bookshop, where I was looking for something of the sort of Lovecraft's The Haunter of the Dark, I came across a ragged book under the promising title Black Crusade, published in 1966 and authored by Machen. I later reached for his various other books, and I should also admit that at one point his literature became something bordering on obsession, perhaps, to say the least, compulsive reading for me. Over time, as I became more familiar with Machen's work, it became obvious to me that not only Lovecraft and Howard, but also others, for instance, Lord Dunsany, that is Edward Plunkett, the 18th Baron Dunsany, drew inspiration from Machen's work in creating his own fantastic and mythical tales. Both authors explored the realms of fantasy and mystery, contributing to the wider genre of weird fiction. Also, Machen's contemporary, Algernon Blackwood, shared a similar interest in the supernatural and the unknown. Both authors were associated with literary movements of the late 19th and early 20th centuries that explored mysticism and mystical aspects of existence. Montague Rhodes James, a master of ghost stories, was influenced by Machen's work. Machen's ability to create an atmosphere of unease and focus on supernatural phenomena undoubtedly contributed to James's approach to horror. Contemporary fantasy author Neil Gaiman has expressed admiration for Machen's work. Gaiman, known for works such as American Gods and Nowhere, recognizes the influence of Machen's ability to combine the mundane with the fantastic in creating immersive and otherworldly narratives. An American writer of weird and horror fiction, Ligotti has cited Machen as an influence on his work. Ligotti, like Machen, explores existential horror and the limits of human understanding in his stories. The acclaimed graphic novelist Alan Moore, known for works like Watchmen and V for Vendetta, has acknowledged Machen's influence on his storytelling, particularly in the exploration of mystical and metaphysical themes. I could happily refer to at least a dozen more authors who, at some stage in their writing careers, have drawn on Machen's source, but I'll spare you a lecture in cultural studies bordering on literature, theory, and history. This is, after all, an archery-themed podcast. Nevertheless, I think that owing to the uniqueness of the subject, and also for the sake of the topic, it is worth deviating slightly off the beaten track and introducing the author of the article we are covering here. Arthur Machen was a Welsh author and mystic known for his contributions to late 19th and early 20th century literature. Born Arthur Llewellyn Jones in Caerleon, Wales, Machen adopted his pen name later in life. His writings, often imbued with a sense of mysticism and the supernatural, earned him recognition as a significant figure within the genre of weird fiction and fantasy literature. Machen's literary interests were diverse, ranging from the esoteric and occult to folklore and decadent literature. His early life and experiences greatly influenced his thematic choices and narrative style. Raised in rural Wales, Machen developed a fascination with the landscape, folklore, and the mystical aspects of his surroundings. These early influences permeated his later works, contributing to the vivid and atmospheric settings often present in his stories. One of Machen's most notable works is The Great God Pan, 1894, a novella that explores themes of cosmic horror, the supernatural, and the consequences of forbidden knowledge. The narrative, which delves into the intersection of science and the occult, had a profound impact on subsequent writers. Machen's interest in mysticism is evident in his later works, where he explored the esoteric and spiritual dimensions of existence. His fascination with the mystical aspects of life is particularly evident in novels like The Hill of Dreams, 1907, and The Secret Glory, 1922, which delve into the transformative power of the numinous and the transcendent. As a contemporary of the fin de siècle literary movement, Machen was associated with the decadent literature of the time. His works often grappled with the decay of traditional values and the allure of forbidden knowledge, reflecting the broader cultural anxieties of the era. Beyond his fictional works, Machen was an essayist and a commentator on a variety of subjects. His essays on literature, mysticism, and the supernatural were published in various periodicals, showcasing his intellectual breadth and engagement with contemporary issues. This is where I wanted to refer to the phenomenon of the Angels of Mons, Machen's notable narrative that emerged during the initial stages of World War I, specifically in the context of the Battle of Mons in Belgium on 23 August 1914. The genesis of this story lies in the confluence of historical events, psychological factors, and literary imagination. The tale gained prominence through its dissemination in the public sphere, primarily through the written accounts of Arthur Machen. The origin of the story can be traced back to Machen's short story titled The Bowman, which was published in the London Evening News on September 29, 1914. Machen's first-person narrative presented a fictionalized account of ethereal bowmen appearing on the battlefield, intervening to aid the beleaguered British forces at Mons. The story was so evocative that it caused a kind of fevered hallucination hysteria among many of the combatants, where the help of these spectral archers was invoked long after the publication of the article. It was then reprinted in other newspapers and magazines, which contributed to its widespread circulation, and thus the mythologization of the occurrence, henceforth known as the Angels of Mons. Moreover, a figment of Machen's imagination became so entrenched in the public consciousness that, even after the war, some individuals claimed to have witnessed the angelic intervention at Mons. The author himself, when questioned about the veracity of the events described in The Bowman, clarified that his work was a piece of fiction intended as a wartime morale booster rather than a factual account. He underscored the speculative and imaginative nature of his narrative, distancing it from historical actuality. Machen's acknowledgement of the fictional nature of the story highlights the malleability of wartime narratives and their potential to transcend the boundaries between fiction and reality. The psychological and sociological effects of the Angels of Mons on contemporary society were profound, contributing to a complex tapestry of emotions, beliefs, and collective responses during the tumultuous period of World War I. Psychologically, the narrative played a pivotal role in providing a coping mechanism for the British populace confronted with the grim realities of warfare. The story tapped into a deep-seated human need for hope and reassurance, offering a supernatural explanation for the uncertainties and horrors of the battlefield. This psychological function is indicative of the power of narrative to shape perceptions and provide solace in times of crisis. Sociologically, the impact of the story manifested in the collective consciousness of the British public. The Angels of Mons became embedded in the cultural fabric, fostering a shared belief in divine intervention and the protective presence of the supernatural. This shared mythos served to strengthen a sense of national identity and resilience among the civilian population. The narrative became a cultural touchstone, influencing public discourse and contributing to a broader societal narrative of heroism, sacrifice, and providence. From a cultural and literary standpoint, the Angels of Mons became emblematic of the intersection between war, folklore, and contemporary myth-making. The enduring legacy of this narrative is reflected in its continued presence in popular culture and historical discourse, serving as a testament to the potent influence of storytelling during times of conflict. The incident surrounding the Angels of Mons exemplifies the complex interplay between fiction, propaganda, and the socio-cultural dynamics of wartime narratives. In contrast, the German perspective on the Angels of Mons and its dissemination in the British press was characterized by skepticism and dismissiveness. The German authorities and the German press generally regarded the narrative as a piece of Entente propaganda designed to boost morale and mask the harsh realities of the war. The incredulity expressed by German sources underscored the recognition of Machen's story as a work of fiction rather than a historical account. The skepticism exhibited by the Germans towards the narrative reflected the reciprocal nature of wartime propaganda, where both sides sought to shape and control the narrative to suit their strategic objectives. For the record, I find all this hype over Machen's story quite unmistakably reminiscent of an American CBS radio play, Orson Welles' adaptation of H.G. Wells' novel The War of the Worlds, cast as an episode of the Mercury Theatre on the air radio drama series. The show was performed and broadcast live on 30th October 1938 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in celebration of the Halloween holiday. Amid public tension and a heightened sense of danger preceding World War II, the broadcast was taken by some radio listeners as factoid, an actual report of a Martian invasion of Earth that caused panic among many New Jersey residents, although the scale of the events is now disputed. Nonetheless, it seems that naivety and faith in everything that does not immediately stand up to the scrutiny of reason have been with us for a long time, and every now and then manifest themselves in stories about the Excalibur and the Knights of the Round Table, or about the heavenly sword bestowed on Joan of Arc, whether it's about a company of ghostly archers in Belgium, Martians attacking New Jersey, or the spirit of the brave Marine named Camouflage, who rescued inexperienced troopers from the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War, and who was so skillfully sung about in the 1980s by Stan Ridgway in his famous hit Camouflage. It is always then when we collapse under the weight of what has come to life thanks to ourselves. It is as if one were hiding in one's own fantasy from oneself. I leave you with this disturbing realization. Shoot straight and to the point, and of course, watch out for apparitions lurking in the shadows of the wild. If you enjoyed today's episode, check back for more.